15 years ago, most of us didn't have cell phones, and we didn't have Twitter, and we didn't have Facebook, and we didn't have advertising. When you flip down the airplane tray, there wasn't advertising on that tray. Yeah. I mean, there's so much more media coming at us. People have done study. The number of impressions of ads that we get every hour is just insane, off the charts, and it's doubled in probably the last 5 years. It'll double again.
Sure.
So our brain's capacity to absorb that certainly hasn't evolved in the last 10 years very much. And so you got people are inundated and they're too busy. You've got, I think people are fundamentally bored. It's weird when you're too busy how you're bored. I think it's because we're all multitasking so much, and I don't think that's doing good things for our brains.
I don't either. I agree with you.
And the third thing related to being too bored is they don't have the connections they used to. I think personally,
because people are so busy and because people are so stressed.
Yep.
Because even when they're with somebody, very often they're not really with them anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are driving home from work and they hit the remote and the garage door opens and they drive in, they push the remote, the garage door, they're not connecting with their neighbors. Yeah. They don't have deep friendships with deep conversations. And I think those three things are going on. So when we allow them to become part of our event, part of our conversation, we really do. They're hungry to be engaged, and
especially if it's a subject people are passionate about too. Because so many conversations are surface. My wife and I are terrible. We go to a party, and people think we're the life of the party. If I'm not there to serve, if we can't get to conversations about something of depth, we don't go anywhere with those conversations. So I think when you're engaging a conversation on the web around a subject matter that you have passion about and they have passion about, I think that's another reason it's so fulfilling.
Absolutely.
And the way you're doing it and the way people are best doing it, there's also some entertainment. There's entertainment in the thing dropping down, the crashing of the dishes, the humor. It's the surprise. It's the randomness that's there as well. Mm-hmm. Let's for people watching. We have business owners that are watching. There are people that, small businesses, $1 to $50 million. There's some big business owners that are part of our group, $50 to $250 million businesses, a couple above that. But they're all looking right now at a world that's changed. They're all looking at a consumer that has to change their decision-making process because they're dealing with a different economic reality. They're dealing with people that are in a tremendous amount of fear. What advice would you have for business owners to say, look, here's a way that you could create a competitive edge for yourself, and here's a way with a very small amount of time, energy, and money, it's a really small amount of money especially, with some creativity, with a small group of your people or on your own, that you could truly make a big difference in your bottom line and your ability to increase sales and maybe do it even more efficiently. So it's not just increased revenue, but you've got a great deal of improvement of profitability, or a great way to deepen your relationship with your consumer, so that this person really becomes a client instead of just a customer. Any words of wisdoms you give? I know we're going to create a whole booklet, by the way, for people watching with some 10 steps of how they can, quote, be you, not necessarily your style, but how they can really accomplish this ability of turning, whatever I believe in, whatever I know, whatever my product or service is, into something to make me thousands or hundreds of thousands or even, $1 million in an hour. But just for the business owner right now who's watching, what would you say to them? What's the low-hanging fruit, those 2 or 3 things that you'd help them go attack?
I think all of my success goes back to a couple principles, and that's building a list, and whether it's a list of clients, a list of prospects, engaging with that list, figuring out what they want, and giving it to them.
Yes.
And so, if we go back, what's the most effective way? If you absolutely had to make a sale, you needed to buy some medicine that cost $1 million to save your child's life, and you needed that $1 million today, and you had something that was worth $1 million, and you needed to make that one sale. What's the sale? What would be your strategy to make that sale?
I go look for somebody that absolutely needed it, as opposed to trying to sell it to everybody, right? Go for somebody who has the capacity and has the need, as opposed to just shooting out for the forest.
And would you send them a letter to make the sale, or would you call them up to make the sale, or
you'd want to be connected to them
face to face?
Right,
okay.
Without a doubt.
So what's the advantage of being face to face with someone?
Immediate, instant feedback. You get to see what's really going on. You get to ask them questions. They get to ask you questions. It's real.
Right. Okay.
Right?
So if the best way to sell is face to face, because we can read how well the message is coming across,
right.
We can be more authentic. People can see us.
Right.
The only problem with selling face to face is you can only do it one at a time, right?
Right.
Theoretically, if you were on a stage in front of people, there's a sort of a not quite as good, but almost as good. But you're limited. Now, if you could engage someone and get feedback from them, but you could do it 10,000 or 100,000 or 1,000,000 at a time.
Yeah.
Well, that's the secret to the product
Right.
launch. And so what I would say for the business owners is, especially in these times, you need to engage your prospects and your clients more than ever.
So let me stop you there for a second. Absolutely agree. What is business based on? It's about serving somebody, serving an audience, really meeting their needs at the highest level. The more we can know about their needs, and if we're creative, the more we can meet those needs. The world's changing. We got to find out what their new needs are. What's necessary now for these people? How do we change and adapt to make that happen? So here's a way to do it that's almost free, that's really clear. But let me do a parallel track with you if it doesn't take you off target. Some people are just starting a business. Their thing is, I don't have any clients. This is one of your greatest gifts. You have figured the way to build them a list. And not just a list, but a list of buyers. Because anybody can go rent a list, right? Or get access to a list, but a list of buyers. And you found ways to stack that geometrically. So I want to walk through that. But let's just start with these people. If I want to, I'm a business owner already, and I want to serve my audience at a different level now, tell me what I should do first. What should I do right now to get the ball going, to re-engage my clients? Maybe they're just customers at this point, and I want to bring them back to the fold. I want to bring our relationship back to life because they're dealing with their life right now and they're not engaged with my automotive company or whatever business I am doing. How would you go about doing it?
I mean, I'd go buy one of those $100 flips, and I would take that thing, and if you are an auto shop, or say you have a service shop where you're serving Mazdas and you're fixing them, I mean, take that flip, and you could even hold it or have someone and say, hey, just wanted to check in. This is Jeff, and I know, a lot of people are getting hurt by the current economic times. You might be experiencing tight times, but you probably certainly know someone that is. And I just want to let you know that a lot of people will put off, the basic maintenance of your vehicle because maybe you're thinking you got to cut, times are tight. You got to save some money somehow. But I just want to check in, let you know we're still here, and tell you that really one of the best investments you can make right now is keeping your car in tune so you don't end up with that huge bill. So I just thought I'd put this video together. I'm going to be putting together a few more of these videos in the coming weeks, just some of the basic maintenance you can do, even stuff that'll cost you nothing at all. That'll be completely free. You don't have to come in to see me. I just thought I'd let you know. And that's about it. I just wanted to say, hey, I got this new video, the flip video. This thing that's like the size of a pack of cigarettes. It cost me $99. It's pretty cool. Actually, it was my son that told me I could do this, and he showed me his YouTube. He said it's like really easy to do. So this is my test. I don't even know if this thing's going to come out, but that's it. Hope to see you soon.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And what do you and so the person receiving that on their list, tell me what you believe they experience, and then what's the next step?
I think that's an interesting question. What do they experience? Personally, I think it's just that, hey, boy, he's just a regular guy, and he understands me, and now he's sort of top of mind. So like I know, oh yeah, that guy is there. Maybe I should give him my business, or next time, it's just top of mind, and he's a regular guy.
Right.
And
he's still sincerely trying to add some value and saying, tell him the truth. And we all know the truth is we don't service, it's going to be a much bigger bill. But the idea that he's going to come back and give me a couple things, cost me nothing, that might prevent me from having to go there is the added value mentality. It has to be a part of a message like this. Is that fair to say?
Yep. Yeah. And now let's take it to the one who, like, I'm going to give you a real example because I know one of my neighbors is starting sort of a farming co-op down in Southwest Colorado.
Okay.
And like they're bringing in the community, people are working on it, and they're growing. It's like the local food movement.
Right.
And so they're sort of self-funding. They'd love to get some grants. But I'm like, boy, and they're doing cool stuff. I mean, they're out there farming, and they're using horses and animals and just wonderful stuff, growing natural food, organic food.
Right.
And I'm like, there's a lot of people throughout the country that don't live in a place where they can grow stuff like that, but that touches them. They love it. I'm like, get yourself a flip, go out there and film some of the cool stuff you're doing. You're chopping down trees, you're taking those trees and you're using them to build a barn.
Yeah.
You're running, you got a portable sawmill you're running, and I mean, people love this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So just shoot some video and put that up on YouTube and create a YouTube channel. Even without a list, you'll start to create a list of followers because that's the kind of people, there are people that, I'm not a farmer, but I certainly know people that are touched by that and even have a passion for it, would like to live it. Almost, it could be like a fantasy type of thing. Another example, there's this company that fishermen in Maine that are going out for lobster, and you can rent a lobster trap. Basically, one of the traps they put down, you pay X number of dollars a year, and that's your trap, and whatever comes up in that trap. And they'll be filming it as they pull that trap up.
Wow.
So I could be sitting in Colorado, like being sort of a lobster fisherman.
That's interesting.
It's cool stuff, but it's
Wow.
all that connection.
Now, what's interesting is that you gave 3 examples. So one person might go, automotive, the guy sends it to me, I just want to edit that piece. I want to get it. They're right. Somebody else might go, farming, organic, I don't care. Somebody else goes, that lobster thing. Yeah, I kind of like being able to see the lobster, I get really happen in that area, and then I get that one. What's interesting is there's so many niches today with the web. What people think about is they think what I think is what everybody thinks. But the world is more diverse than it's ever been. And because of that, we have this, quote, long tail. Maybe you should talk a little bit about niches. And one other piece, which is, I think in some of your teachings, one of the things you say is the first thing I should do is find some way to add value by writing a report. Offer that report. Let's talk about how you do a product launch from the early step here. Let's get into a little bit. What's the first added value piece like that besides the flip that I might be able to do? And then how do you start to build the list? And how do you start to service the list? Can we go there?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, when you're going into a launch, you got to figure out what you want out of the launch. And,
Right.
and I mean, there's I just want to make some money, so I want to change the world. And there's all kinds of, it's a continuum, obviously.
Right. Hopefully both. You can
Yeah,
pull it off,
yeah,
right?
and you can pull off both, but you got to figure out what you're after, and you got to figure out where you're at and what your assets are.
Right.
So it's radically different if you have a list or if you have access to people with lists,
Yes.
potential partners. If you're starting with no list,
So let's start with the person who's at home now. Let's switch for a second. Going to the person who has the list, what I'm hearing from you is the core strategy of that business is create a real, raw, added value relationship with your customers to make them clients.
Yeah.
Find a way to be there consistently that's not irritating but adds value. And we're going to take people through what those steps are to do individual launches. I mean, if I'm going to do something that's to add value and I'm going to make a special offer to you, I got a better chance of you responding to me. But in the beginning, I just need to add that value. The very thing you did by your nature, I'm not wanting to ask for anything, just putting out value for people. We all know that induces reciprocation because that's the nature of life. If somebody's always giving, you want to give back to them, or you at least want to use their services. So be intelligently spiritual, constantly be a giver in those relationships, be selective and smart so you're not inundating somebody. And that's kind of the place to start. What I'd love to do is maybe we'll shift for a moment. Let's say we've got somebody out there right now that lost their job. Too many people have had that experience and they don't know what to do. But inside there's a part of them that says, hey, maybe I could really have my own business right out of my own house. Maybe I'm not a giant entrepreneur, but this sounds interesting to me. I've heard stuff about it. Where would I start? Or maybe it's somebody who hasn't lost their job, but they don't want to wait till that time. They want to have another income stream. What do you say to them as the first steps to really setting themselves up for success in this area? How do they identify, for example, what that product or service is, and then what are the steps that they would take?
well, the beautiful thing is you can start doing this with literally no money.
Right.
I'm thinking, the example I'm going to think of is a sister-in-law of mine she does an incredible job of meal planning. She's got a family, 3 kids, husband, family, and she's incredible with having their dinners planned out, serving them a great dinner, and having it planned out 2 weeks in advance, and she's dialed in.
And people are looking for a way to eat more efficiently and be able to take care of their homes, both time-wise and money-wise today.
Right. So what I said to her is, Carol, you start a blog. And blogs, I mean, there's various ways to do it. The easiest way is like at WordPress.com, where you can literally 5 minutes from now, someone could be publishing a blog if they figure out a username to use and a password and name of the blog, and that's all it is, and boom,
Right.
you got one.
Right.
There's better ways to do it, but that's very easy, simple to do. You start publishing. You start publishing like on a daily basis, and you do that for 30 or 60 days. You'll start to pull in traffic from the search engines.
Right.
You
So
publish.
you put out enough advice
Yeah.
over enough pages,
Right.
then Google starts to pick you up, basically.
Yep. Preferably you do keyword focused blogging. I'm sure we don't have time to go into all the keyword stuff,
Well,
but
we'll do that in the report that's attached.
yeah. So keyword focused blogging, you'll start to pull in traffic. You use that to build a list, preferably an email list. You also start to get blog comments. You encourage people to make comments on the blog. And so what you've done is you started a conversation with the blog comments, and you started to build an email list
Right.
by putting up a email capture form on your blog. Now you've got a list, and that's the gold. I mean, that's the asset that you're building.
Right.
And at that point, you would go to them and you'd say, boy, I keep, people keep on writing into me. I'm getting all these great comments. I really love doing this. Frankly, I'm really pretty busy myself. Just, what really touches or what really brings, brings fulfillment to me is putting a great meal on the table every night for my family.
Right.
And, I published this blog because I love to share that passion with people. But lately I've been hearing from a lot of people that told me they'd want more from me. They'd like to maybe see like a book or some videos on how I actually do this planning and put these meals together. So I don't know if I'm ready to make that jump, to make that commitment, but what do you think? Would you be interested in something like that? And if I put that together, how would you like me to see videos, or would you like to see a book, or what? What kind of questions could I answer for you? So if you could just go take this survey and then I'd really appreciate it. Help me figure out where to go with this.
Right.
And then you would send it to your list. Send them to a survey. The survey could be, what are your top 2 questions about, about meal planning, about my type of meal planning. And again, all this stuff, you can use free survey software that anyone can put this stuff together in seconds. So, I mean, we're talking,
Right.
the very basic, someone who's just starting out,
Right.
There's all kinds of levels you can do this at, but that's the basic level that someone could start at with no money,
Right.
literally zero.
So you start out, you go out and start to create a blog. You start to share an area that you're passionate about, that you feel you have some expertise in, or you start to do research in. You start to get interaction with that audience. You start to build that because Google starts to see you because you've added enough value, in terms of volume at this point. You're engaging the conversation about what people's needs are. You start to get a vision of something you think you could provide. A video service, some kind of PDF, some audio, whatever the case may be. You engage your customers, see what they really want. You find out the questions they have, and you answer them.
Right.
And then you begin to do this process of where you could actually start maybe to build a launch.
Right.
So
and
let's
I have a technical term for that first survey and that first messaging of I'm thinking about doing this is the
Yes.
shot across the bow. I've got these
Right.
really technical
That's
terms
very
for everything.
technical.
So the shot across
Where'd
the
you
bow.
get that from?
The theory there is, and it's not theory, it's been proven over and over, we've done it, is basically you're letting someone know something's coming, but did you feel like you were getting sold there? Would anyone
Yeah.
feel like they were getting sold there?
Yeah.
No, you're just thinking about doing something
Yeah.
and would want some feedback. And actually these days people are so busy right now that one of the things people are starved is having other people pay attention to them.
Yeah.
So by just asking them to take the survey and tell them what they want, there's actually reciprocity because you're giving your attention to them. So you're starting to build a little reciprocity there, and you're building a conversation.
And by the way, I'd say for anybody who's watching us, I know you're very familiar with him. I interviewed him almost 20 years ago when he first wrote out his book on influence, Robert Cialdini's book on influence, which really almost everything you're doing came out of just your evolution of wanting to give, which is the natural instinct of somebody that's not in fear. But when we get in fear, we try to hang on to things. And I think one of the great pieces of every money master I've seen here, every master of marketing, at some level, they've structured their life around giving and adding tremendous value first. And as a result, they're reaping tremendous rewards. But people don't tend to do that when they're afraid. And so what I'm hoping is that this set of interviews, they'll see how simple it is to get started. Now, I know some people are more sophisticated. They go, I've already bought 22 programs, on how I can make my business work, but I'm still not doing anything. Well, maybe you should come talk to me then, because that's my job to get people to follow through. But let's talk about, let's say that I've started to build this little list. The real power of what you have is a lot of people say, okay, I might be able to build this little list through time, and I might get a few people, and I might sell a few products, but is that ever going to really amount to something that could replace the income I had before? And part of how you've done that is having this way of launching and really starting to build with affiliates, building a syndicate, the concepts of stacking. So can we take those a step at a time and kind of walk through those?
Sure.
So why don't we start with, okay, I've shot across the bow. I got this product or service. I'm excited about it. I've begun to build a list by adding value, and there are ways that I can expand that. Where do I go from there? How do I really go about building a launch?
Well, first of all, I think I love momentum is a key thing. And people, I think you either have momentum and you're growing, or you're not and you're dying.
Yeah.
And when you got it, you're jumping out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
I remember actually in the Personal Power, you said, if you're having trouble getting out of the bed in the morning, you don't have good enough reasons, and you got to get those reasons. That was a very impactful thing I heard.
You have infinite goals. You're not bored. You got infinite goals. You're not lazy. You just don't have something that's going to drive you that's compelling.
Right. So you either have the momentum or you don't. And that's, I think about that in business, that the launch gives momentum. And as all entrepreneurs will go through times where you don't have your mojo going. You're not sure where you're going. And any entrepreneur who's honest, we all have doubts. We all have every one of us at times you have the doubts. But it's like the launch to me is like the instant doubt banisher. It's gone. They're gone. And I mean they'll come back. But if you have those doubts, the less frequently you have them, the better your life in every way.
Right.
So I also think in terms of the launch being the momentum as you go through the launch. It's like a novel. I remember in high school we would diagram a novel, and you'd have this axis which was the tension, and this is your timeline, and the novel goes like this, and the tension continues to increase as you go through it. Then you get to page 220, and you find out who did it. And the tension falls off, and the book ends at 221, and everyone feels warm and happy.
Right.
That's the way a launch is. You build the tension, you build the momentum as you go through. You're always holding back. Like in that long-form sales letter, people scroll down to the bottom, and they see what the price is.
It's done.
A launch, they can't scroll down to the bottom. They have to sit there and...
It's a little cliffhanger.
Exactly.
Yes.
Every piece. And so as you're taking it through, you're taking a story that's shot across the bow. There's not much tension in that story.
Yeah.
But now I've decided I'm going to do it.
Right.
And so that builds the tension. And then you give them some information that eases the tension a little bit, but you start building it right away. And they want to find out what's going to be in it. They want to find out really how with this Genesis story, like what we're talking about, where I'm not in business and I'm thinking about getting into business. I mean, they want to find out how it's going to impact you, how it's going to change your life.
Right.
And so you're going through the marketing and you're getting them a little more excited. They're learning a little bit more about it. You ease the tension when you give them some content, but you immediately build into the next piece of content. The next, you're solving their problems. You're sharing yourself. You're sharing your story, how this is going to change you. But of course, most of it's almost always about them. There's, you're in the background. The story's always got to be about them.
It's about meeting their needs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and then they're starting to think, all of a sudden something's going off in the back. It's like the fourth time I saw your infomercial. It's like, maybe there is something here. And so that's a key moment when when they make that little shift from this is BS, this is not for me, to like, maybe this is about me. Maybe this is about my problems. Maybe this does solve my problems. There's this little, and that's when you continue to build on that by giving more content, by answering their objections, by building up this reciprocity, by building authority. That was another thing that Dr. Cialdini talked about, was building authority. How do you get authority? A policeman puts on a uniform. The way we do it in a launch is we generally show that we're experts in the area, and we can do that because we can give away so much great free stuff.
I think there's another way too, and correct me if I'm wrong, in my life it's been, if you can know more about that person's problems than they even know about them, if I can understand you and I can help you understand yourself or your needs, I can help you solve those quicker, you're going to come back to me because you're like, wow, this guy's got the shortcut to getting what I haven't been able to get myself to do. He knows what's stopping me. He knows how to get me moving, and he's showing me how to make that happen for myself. I think in any place, you can be an expert through information, but you can also be an expert by the quality of your interaction. And I've seen you do that. That's what you're really doing. You're really understanding their problem, and you're saying, here's really what the problem is. You think it's this, but it's this. Let me show you how you can solve it. And you're giving that and giving it and giving it and giving it. And now eventually you're to the point where you say, well, here's a product that I have that I think can help you institutionalize that or keep that result long term. Is that a fair metaphor for it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And I like building the experience for them. Like, I know I went to this great restaurant recently, and they did so many amazing things, but it was not, any step was, like they brought out menus, and each menu it was hand painted, like a landscape painting. It's like, wow, that's different. I've never seen that. And then they had a story behind. This is actually Native American. They had stories behind it. So they would have someone would come out and tell the story behind it. And they had all these beautiful little touches.
Wow.
But then at the end, when we left, the valet brought up our car, and there's a handwritten note addressed to us personally with a couple chocolates and some water in the car, like bottled water. And it's like that last thing took them 10 seconds to write the note, and it took them $1 for the candies, and it took them $1 for the water bottle. But that was just like, now we tell everyone how amazing this was, and that was the last little piece. It's like you build the power by adding on these extra little touches, and often they're very easy and they're very inexpensive. And you're going through the launch, you get the chance to just keep on adding those. And that's the idea of the stack, the pressure stack.
Let's talk about that. And by the way, if you're watching this right now and you're thinking, okay, well, this sounds interesting, but how does that look? How do I go about that? We're going to create a webinar with you so you can walk people through that where they can have the visuals to see how it's working.
Right.
And we're adding a little booklet in here for you that'll be the 10 steps. So let yourself just hear this first time through and just kind of take the experience. But stacking is one of the most valuable things in this world. Think about stacking, when somebody overreacts to somebody, they get angry and they yell at their kid or yell at somebody else, they're not reacting to this moment. They're reacting to the fact it happened again. There's a stacking. And what can be negatively stacked can also be positively stacked. It's another tool of momentum. So as you're going through this process, you've come up with something you believe in. You've published it in some way, PDF, videos, whatever it is. You've done your blog. You've added enough value over enough time that there's truly value there. People are learning something. They're getting something that matters. And Google's going to recognize you. You're starting to build a list as people opt in. You've got a good relationship with these people and you're engaging them. You now have begun to maybe you didn't even know what your product was, truthfully. You don't have to start out knowing your product was in this way. And it costs you nothing. Is it fair to say?
Right.
And so now you're starting to get ideas. Wow, this is what people really need. Wow, I really do have value. People are liking my point of view. A lot of entrepreneurs don't have the gift of this prior to the web. You had to decide there's enough demand in the marketplace here. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go rent the buildings. I'm going to go hire the people. That's the beauty of today. That's why people today really can make $100,000, $500,000, an 8-figure income out of their house with 1 or 2 people. When in human history was that possible before? So you know your customer, you're engaging them, you can do it 24/7, you can do it, in somewhat real time, instantaneous, you can do it, in an asynchronous environment where you're not there at the same moment. I now know my product. I now start to get interested in it. I'm starting this launch because I'm engaging those people. They're telling me the answers. I'm starting to tell them a little bit what that product might be. They're telling me more about what they want. Am I on target so far?
Yep.
And now as we start to do it, now I say, you know what? I come up with it, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to launch it on X date, which creates by itself a different level of tension, energy, completion, also in the entrepreneur, because they start going, okay, this is when it's really going to happen. Am I still there?
Absolutely.
I'm trying to do the narrative of this process so people get it in their bodies.
Absolutely.
And now, as I do that, I start to reveal maybe a little bit about the product. But as I get towards that final date, the final piece I want to do is I want to create a fever pitch of excitement for this. And the best way for me to do that is add even more value. Is that fair to say?
Yep.
And that's what we're talking about at stacking.
Yeah, the stack. And actually, there's a few different levels of the stack.
Tell me.
And well, one of them is within a launch, but also you can stack launches on top of each other.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's great. And I got to say, my friend Frank Kern and I were having a little debate about this, about who came up with this term stacking, and it very well might be.
You both stole it from me.
Yeah, absolutely. We throw this stuff back and forth so much, and we were trying to remember who came. It was probably Frank that came up with the term. But basically, you've got someone bought into this launch as you're coming into the last few days. Say like about 5 days out is typical big launch. If this is something you're really pouring your heart and soul into, it might be a 3 or 4 week launch. The last 5 days is where you pivot a little bit and you start to talk about the product.
Okay.
And now, because they, especially if it's a higher price product, they have to understand, a sales process, they need a lot of information. So you've led up to it. You're talking about objections. You're talking about how to meet those objections. Of course, they're not objections in the languaging.
Right.
They're questions.
Right.
But you're answering, you're getting them excited. Now you start to talk about the product. In the last few days, you can do this stack where once you've solidified roughly what the product is, and you've sort of defined what the price is, so they at least have an idea of what the price is. And now they've got this, they're weighing stuff. It's a scale. It's like, this is what I'm going to get, and this is what it's going to cost. And you always want it, what they get to be a lot more in their mind. I mean, that's the way you create value.
Sure.
Okay, so you got that thing, like that, where here's that value. And then in maybe the last 3 days, you say, oh, by the way, we just added this other thing that you're going to get. And it goes like this. And the next day, we just added another thing. And it goes like this. And the next day, we just added another thing.
So you're going to get this and this and this.
Yeah.
This thing.
They're already like, wow, I need to get that, or boy, that sounds like a great deal, or I'm loving the sounds of that. Right. And all of a sudden, you pile on more stuff. But you do it day after day. It's that cumulative effect. It's like getting out of that restaurant and finding those candies in the water in your car. It's those stacking one on top of another where it just becomes ridiculous. It's like, yeah, I got to get that.
Right.
And
you have, go ahead.
well, I mean, just the launch, instead of sort of being a cheesy thing like at the end of an infomercial where, we're going to get like 4 Ginsu knives too, and you're going to get the knife sharpener. And
you really hurt me with the infomercial comment.
I was like, oh man, I should have filtered that one out. But hey, it's your infomercial changed my life. I mean, that's why I'm here. That is why.
You know what it is? It's like, you got a passion, and people out there have a passion. You have something you love, and you got to find a vehicle to get it out there. And hopefully, we did it in a rich way. But please continue. I didn't mean to take it away. So instead of at the end, what you're saying is the gift you have in the infomercial, you only got their attention right now and barely have it now because you're able to talk one-to-one to these people. You're able to make that stacking offer, and I'm going to bring you this too. And by the way, I thought about it. You know what else I think you want? I think you probably really value this as well. And all this is coming up against the deadline, correct?
Right.
And that's what's helping to create the pressure. Because without the deadline, so that deadline is you're only going to sell it for a period of time. Tell me about that part, because otherwise the pressure, there's nothing, you can't have pressure unless there's something you're building up against.
Yeah. Well, really, everything we're talking about with the product launch, it's a toolbox. And a lot of this stuff, it's almost plug and play. You can add this piece in. None of this stuff has to happen every time.
Got it.
So you can add this piece.
It's
you can
art,
add this
not
piece.
science in that area.
Yeah. And so often, like, scarcity is something that drives people insane and makes them act.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I certainly procrastinate at times in my life, like every day. And and so I know personally that it drives me crazy. Like, and I'm great at hitting deadlines, but I know what deadlines do to me. So when I was developing this stuff, it's like we need some deadlines. Yeah. And so there's 3 primary ways to create deadlines, and one is that the product is only going to be available for a certain amount of time. Right. Now, for the guy with the with the service station for cars, it's probably not going to be that great a fit. He's going to be doing oil changes forever, right? So, but you can still. So, the first one is to take the product off the market. The second one is a limited price. Like the price is available. Yeah,
the offer is only available.
It's like a sale.
And it sincerely is. It's a sale.
Right. Like. I mean, you can really look at a lot of what I'm doing and say, well, you're just putting stuff on sale. And in a way, yeah, we've added.
There's a stacking process.
Yeah, we've added some nuances. Yeah. And the other one is again the offer. It's bonuses. Bonuses go away. So you want something negative to happen if they don't take advantage of your launch. So you've built up to this thing, and you hit the button and you go live, and they might have a day or a week. I really wouldn't go longer than a week. It's tough to keep the momentum.
How long do you keep most of your offers? I'm curious, or most of your deadlines like that?
Well, I used to do a week, like when I was in the stock market. But now that I'm selling stuff more in the teaching entrepreneurs, it's more of a pressure cooker market, and there's more launches going on. And it's it's a more fragmented market. So I really like to take stuff on and off the market within a day or so.
I understand. Yeah.
And,
because you want people to truly act.
Yeah.
And it's the weird thing about us as human beings is we do things when it's a must, And by the stacking, it becomes more of a must. I'm getting more and more and more value. And if it's costing me this little, get this value, but if I don't act, the whole thing disappears.
Exactly.
And without that, unfortunately, a lot of people won't act. And so, a lot of people say this sounds like manipulation, but it's like if you're going to be an effective parent, if you're going to be an effective business person, effective leader, you've got to know how human needs work, and you've got to be able to play to those, even in yourself, to get yourself to things. Your own deadline, I think part of the beauty of your launch is it puts a deadline on an entrepreneur. It's like, I have to get my act together by this date, and that's when this baby is going to go. If you don't do that, Parkinson's law, work fills and expands the amount of time you have for it. So I think it works not only for the consumer, but I think it also works for the entrepreneur as well.
Totally. Now, one thing I want to mention, though, is often launches do get pushed out, and it might be a couple days or a week, and so
it's okay to do that. Your consumer, as long as your consumer stays hungry, as long as you don't lose the benefit.
The soup is ready when the soup's ready.
Got it.
And so I really like to avoid external deadlines, like say we just had an inauguration, that's an event, and a lot of times I like to tie into outside events. But if you say, lead into it for 4 weeks, we're going to have an inauguration launch, you got to do it then.
Yeah.
And then you're locked in, and if you haven't brought the market to fever pitch, if you haven't gotten all your pre-launch content out there and answered all the objections, and 2 days beforehand you're saying, oh, the soup's not ready.
And you're knowing that because you're engaging the consumer. You're in conversation with the consumer. I get it.
Right. I like to avoid external deadlines.
So when you say that, you might still say, I'm going to do it here, but if you got closer, you say, hey guys, it's not ready yet. It's going to be another 3 days. Just want to tell you what's happening.
Yeah. I've been getting so much feedback during this launch. People are really excited about this new product we're going to release about growing big tomatoes. I mean, they can't wait to get their, to get their starts in the greenhouse and get their tomatoes started. And I am absolutely dedicated to getting you this product. But I also know that, that there's a lot of questions still in the marketplace. And I've, frankly, once I roll out this program, there's going to be a lot of follow-up. I'm going to be working with my new coaching students, and I'm not going to have time to be answering, the general public, the people that haven't bought from us. But I still have a few pieces of great free pre-launch, or you wouldn't ever say pre-launch. I've still got a few great pieces of free content that I want to get out to you guys, because I'm all about making an impact, and I want to make an impact even before we start this coaching program. So what I've decided to do is I'm just going to